I am joined with Heather Reid, registered dietitian here in Lloydminster. Empower You is the company. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you in. And we have something interesting to talk about. The Canada Food Guide changed recently. And so just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it and how to kind of break it down and look over it.
Yeah, so it's been a big change. It's 12 years since it's been released. So instead of the good kind of brochure, it's actually just a one-page document now.
Yeah.
So they really simplified it. It's focusing not on the servings, so portions, that whole broken down, and it's just going with having plenty of fruits and vegetables. It went to that plate method, and this plate method I actually really like. So instead of focusing on this much of this much of this, it's focusing just vegetables and fruit, protein, whole grain food choices.
Right.
So they went with just protein. So choosing your own protein choices. They did focus a lot on the legumes, which I love.
Yeah.
So getting those lentils, getting those chickpeas. And then they also went to just not what foods you're eating, but what kind of environment are you eating them in? They focused on that mindful eating. So this is something that I incorporate into my practice.
Right.
So it's not just what are you eating at that dining room table, but how full are you? How hungry are you? So incorporating some of those thought processes into it as well.
Interesting. So when you talk about mindful eating, that just basically means it's not necessarily like 3 meals a day, this, and this. It's kind of going off of your own thoughts and your schedule, and it's more like personalized, basically.
Yes. So it's kind of that intuitive eating. So are you hungry? Why are you hungry? Is it that emotional hunger?
Right.
Are you eating because you're bored?
Yeah.
And then also, are you just eating because the plate's there, it's full, or are you eating because you're actually fulfilling that need?
Right. And I did want to talk about, because I've noticed once this came out that there's a little bit of backlash with less meat and dairy, and people are kind of panicking about that. So I kind of want you to kind of explain what that looks like, and if it is really that big change that people are so scared about, basically.
So they didn't focus on the milk and dairy as much. They focused on water, which I'm so happy to see that they focused on water. There's no juice as well, which is amazing to see. There's still meat on it, but they didn't go into the portions of meat.
Okay.
So they focused just on protein
and
getting it from other sources as well.
Okay.
So getting it from a variety.
Okay, and so for someone who necessarily doesn't know where they can get their proteins from, if they want to try it and kind of minimalize their meat intake, what are your suggestions that are good substitutes that will keep you full? Because lots of people are, well, I'm just going to have to eat and eat and just eat just to fill that amount. So what are your suggestions that kind of mimic that portion intake?
So going with eggs are a great meat alternative, and then trying some of those beans. It's actually crazy of how filling they are because they have that extra fiber as well.
Right.
So 3/4 of a cup is that alternative.
Oh, okay.
But that's where trying them, looking online with recipes. That's another thing, going online and checking out the recipes that come with this. There is a crazy amount of recipes that they've included with this as well.
That's perfect. So personally, your thoughts on it, what can you take away? What was when you first initially kind of looked at it, what was your first thoughts on the guide?
First of all, I was amazed with how small it was. I was expecting a much more in-depth type of resource. But I thought that they've targeted a lot of good messages, but it's not as in-depth. So definitely take some explaining. If you go further into the guide, it does have a lot of really good key messages. It just isn't as in-depth as the previous guide.
Right, yeah, which is fine. I think for me personally, when I took a look at it, it wasn't as daunting with the rainbow of everything that we're used to seeing and things like that. So just simplified and pretty basic. So,
and it cues you to go and talk to that health professional. It says use food labels. So then how do you use those food labels? So it's giving you those cueing messages to then get more information about.
That's awesome. Well, we are at time today. Heather, thank you so much for coming in and kind of breaking that down for us. And we look forward to always having you in the studio. So thank you.